So, got a great question about if there's a top-down and a bottom-up driver happening at the same time. How do you look at that? How do you determine which driver to really focus on? So I started writing it out, and then I thought, why don't I just make a video? So the question was in reference to if you have a forward lunge and you're reaching for, say, a box at about waist height. How do you determine which is the driver? You base your real and relative upon. Is it the driver that moves first or moves faster? Let's look at it this way. Let's break it down a little bit. So with our nomenclature, we're going to call this, let's say it's a right foot lunge at 0 degrees. Okay? And at the same time, we're doing a bilateral hand reach at 0 degrees at waist height. Okay, so let's break down or TRASMA the real and relative motion at the right hip. All right, so sagittal plane, my pelvis is anteriorly rotating, my femur is flexing, so what's happening there is flexion at the hip in the sagittal plane, which is just going to be a deeper flexion than if you didn't have the reach. And once we get into the TRASMA forms, you'll see that there's a section where we can kind of categorize the range of motion at the hip. But for right now, it's the same motions. Here, my pelvis is going to anteriorly rotate, my hip, my femur is going to be flexing. It's going to be flexed, right? And here, the same motions are happening just at a deeper level. If we go frontal plane, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at the right hip, okay? So, at the same time, what's happening here is my hip is adducted, right? So, the pelvis is laterally flexing to the left, and my femur is going this way, which that motion then there, if I took my pelvis here, is going to be still adducted, but I'm going to say, for me, it's going to be just deeper since I'm doing that waist height reach. Now if we look at the transverse plane, we know that if we just did that lunge, that the calcaneus hitting the ground, if everything's working right down there, the calcaneus will evert, the talus is going to fall down and in, the tibia is going to roll in, the femur is going to internally rotate at the same time. Okay, so what's happening here too is my pelvis is also, everything is rotating to the left here. So if you call that internal rotation, that's rotating to the left. Because my pelvis is swinging through, then my pelvis is also rotating to the left. But what happens, the reason that we get relative internal rotation here, even though everything is rotating to the left, is that the femur, it's driven bottom up, so the femur is moving faster and further than the pelvis, which creates that relative internal rotation. Even though the real bone motion, they're both going the same, but the femur is going a little faster, so if I do it this way, the femur is going faster. This is still going the same way, but since the femur goes faster, that gives you that relative internal rotation. We add the reach in here, and this is where you start to see differences in different body types, I think, and other people might disagree. But as we reach down there, I don't believe that that's going to change the real and relative action of the pelvis or the femur with that anterior reach. I hope that helps.